All human beings learn in the same way. Wow, what a statement. I'm sure that's making your brain itchy because it certainly made my brain itchy when I first read it. I'm Dr. Karen Caldwell. Please call me Karen. And in this video, we're going to explore this statement together. And as you watch this video, I want you to be active. Remove your phone from your environment physically and put it on silent. Also, I want you to take notes on paper by hand and ideally add drawings and sketches to your notes. Finally, I'm going to be asking you to answer some questions, and I'd like you to pause the video and generate your answers to those questions. Generate those answers in writing or orally, not just in your head. All right, so when you're ready, let's get going. First, pause and ponder question I want to ask you is, how is this statement accurate? How is this so? We're really all so different, so how is it that all humans learn in the same way? And if that's true, how do humans acquire knowledge and skills? So I want you to pause the video, think about it, and jot down your initial answers on paper. And I'm going to give you a hint. There are two ways that humans acquire knowledge and skills. So pause the video. When you're ready, press play. All right, welcome back. So there are two main ways that we acquire knowledge and skills, and this iceberg is going to help us to remember what those two ways are. Here we have what's above the surface and observable to ourselves and others consciously. And below the surface, there's a great deal going on in our sort of internal lives. And of course, what I'm hinting at are two ways that we learn knowledge and skills, and that's consciously and subconsciously. So with that in mind, I want you to pause now and predict what some examples are of subconscious knowledge and skills. And think about yourself. What knowledge and skills have you acquired subconsciously? Again, press pause, jot down one or two examples, and when you're ready, press play. All right, here we go. So some examples are what you see on the screen there of that little toddler beginning to speak. They have the phone upside down, but they are mimicking what's in their environment and they're learning to talk. And this process of acquiring the skill of speaking is subconscious. It's also intuitive and it's acquired naturally. We also have evolved to recognize faces. And facial recognition is acquired by interacting with our environment. It's not conscious, it's subconscious, and it requires multiple exposure to the knowledge and skills. So let's recap a little bit. So the subconscious knowledge and skills are examples like talking, walking, recognizing faces, and engaging in basic social functions. And there's a term for that, for this type of knowledge and skills that comes from cognitive, developmental, and evolutionary psychologist David Geary. And Geary calls this biologically primary knowledge and skills. And these competencies, you could say, are acquired naturally. They're acquired through interaction in our environments. They are without conscious effort generally. They require multiple exposures, of course, and they are intuitive. So we have conscious and subconscious skills, and now we are going to be looking at the conscious knowledge and skills. So I want you to pause and predict some examples of the conscious knowledge and skills. And again, think of yourself. What knowledge and skills have you consciously acquired? And when you're ready, press play. All right, so examples of conscious knowledge and skills that may surprise you are reading and writing. We are not biologically hardwired to read or to write. We have to have those connections formed in our bodies and brains in very sort of effortful ways. They're not something that a switch can be flipped on by our environment or simply by observing. And so David Geary calls these biologically secondary. We haven't evolved over time to read or to write, for example. This kind of knowledge and skills are conscious because they require our conscious effort, and believe me, they are effortful. All right, we've reached the stage where we understand these two main ways that we acquire knowledge and skills, but so what? Why does this matter? Well, we all are humans and we all have very similar biology. And as you see across the lifespan, our biology changes, but we still manage to learn in the same way. So what I want to point out is some helpful information from Dr. Cooney Horvath, who is a neuroscientist and educator. And in this image, I want you to think about the very young children. Very young children seem to learn effortlessly. This is because during our earliest years, the brain is wired to absorb information through exposure alone. And that's why toddlers can pick up multiple languages without formal instruction. So here, Cooney Horvath is speaking about this subconscious knowledge and skills that seem to be effortless. On the other hand, we have this statement here that I'm going to read to you that takes into account our aging brain. So again, biologically, we are very similar, but our organs evolve, don't they? And they change over time. So you'll see that I've blacked out the actual number, the age at which the brain begins to shift. So let me read this quote about the aging brain. And this comes again from Cooney Horvath. Around age blank, the brain begins shifting from broad exploratory processing toward more specialized, efficient processing. From this point on, while we can still absorb some information passively, deep learning requires conscious effort and deliberate practice. Wow, so this is a change. And I want you to pause and try to guess what age that is where the brain begins to shift from subconscious to conscious. And when you're ready, press play. Okay, the big reveal. So it is around age 5 that the brain begins to shift from largely subconscious learning to conscious learning. And I'm hoping that surprised you as well. So now let's pause and ponder. If our brains learn more consciously by the age of 5, what does that actually mean for our learning across the lifespan? What are the implications of this fact? Again, press pause when you're ready, press play, and we'll consider some answers to this question. Well, this really makes us think about our own learning and others' learning in terms of where we should focus our energy and the work that we do on ourselves and others when we think about acquiring and learning knowledge and skills. Should we focus on conscious acquisition of knowledge and skills or subconscious? What do you think? Well, I believe, and cognitive science and neuroscience data and research suggest that we should focus on conscious learning. As you saw earlier in the quote, learning across the lifespan becomes largely conscious. And that means really that if we're learning in conscious ways, we need to manage our attention and our focus. And we have to recognize that that process is going to be slow and require effortful practice. It's not going to be seamless, just based on exposure. So now let's look back. Let's pause and reflect and think about that notion of conscious effort and deliberate practice. What does it mean for your own learning? What does it mean for others' learning? When you're ready, press play. Well, we don't have explicit answers right now. We're going to explore a lot of these questions together. But you should have an itchy brain. You should be really curious right now. And I'm just going to share some of the questions that I have had across the years as I've learned about these concepts and explored the research that some of which is over 100 years old. So here are some itchy brain questions you may also be having. I know I learn differently from my spouse, for example, or from my students. How do we explain that? I know this happens. And what about learning styles? I've heard about, visual learners, audio learners, kinesthetic learners. What does this mean for the learning styles concept? And I'm going to give you a hint. Learning styles as an instructional strategy or as a learning strategy is a myth. And we're going to explore that a little bit together. How about that third question? Do neurodiverse learners learn in the same way that neurotypical learners do. And just as an example, a neurodiverse learner may be someone who is living with autism, for example. And finally, well, if we all learn differently, what about technology? If I have technology but you don't as I learn, is that going to affect how I learn? So these are really important questions that, and I'm sure you have your own, but I want you to think about your own questions and the concepts we just explored. And on the next screen, I'm going to give you the references if you'd like to explore the information I shared earlier a little more deeply. And here you go. And that's it for now, folks. Over and out, and I will see you online.